I mean, look, you can say this is a relief, but there's another 90 days of uncertainty to come, which is worth it. And you could also try to spin this as a victory, or you could see this as a failure of policy and leadership on the part of the White House. I will point out there are still trillions lost from that day, Kelly. There's still quite a bit that's been lost here in terms of where we were just on April 3rd. We're still down, way down. These 10% tariffs, the market doesn't like these either. We didn't get that back yet.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Okay. That's CNBC's senior economics reporter Steve Liesman with those comments yesterday following President Trump's pause in tariffs.
So now,
would you like to speak?
Well, I just wanted to say, and my apologies,
yes,
dear. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So the Nikkei, by the way, overnight up 9%. That's significant. Europe up 5.7%, also significant. But the S&P 500 futures down 1.74 right now. And Dow Jones futures down 1.38%. And if you look at the board, that starts with about 400 off. And by the way, all of these things can exist together at the same time because obviously Japan feeling relief that the tariffs weren't levied against them. So obviously the Nikkei exploded like ours overnight, 10%. But obviously the U.S. economy is still linked to China in many ways that are causing great concerns on the market right now. But, as we've been saying this morning, as we said yesterday, a trade war against China is far more sellable politically than when it's China, the EU, Japan, Canada, and other allies.
So several conservative commentators were also critical about how things went down. Writer and editor Amanda Carpenter wrote on social media, quote, "Now would be a good time for Congress to take its tariff power back." New York Times opinion columnist David French echoing that sentiment from a similar post, writing, quote, "Exactly that which Trump arbitrarily revokes, he can arbitrarily invoke."
And that was a subtweet from Charles Cook with the National Review.
Joining us now, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. She serves on the Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee. She's also ranking member of the Senate Agricultural Committee. It's very good to have you on.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I'm just curious. Last week, the Senate passed legislation that you helped lead that would terminate new tariffs on Canada. The bill passed by a 51-48 vote with 4 Republicans and all Democrats in support would undo Trump's declaration from February when he invoked emergency powers to justify across-the-board tariffs. How important is it that Congress gets its power back on all of this?
I don't know what these House Republicans think. Do they think that they are subjects to the king, or are they actually elected by their constituents? Because this is our power. And we were pleased to get just 4 Republicans, 2 with bordering states to Canada, and then 2 that happen to be in the state of Kentucky. What's the word? Kentucky bourbon off the shelves in Canada, who joined us and basically said, no, this isn't truly an emergency at the border. This is wrong. And now that's going over to the House that has now decided both on the legislation that Senator Kaine and I led, but also with regard to any tariff legislation, with a major effort going on right now with Maria Cantwell and Senator Grassley. I'm one of the Democrats on that bill. There's 14, 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats, who basically say that once they put these tariffs in, then we have the right to okay them or not within a certain period of time. And that would be for all countries. And the House, once again, has given up their power to do this. And I look at what happened yesterday, and yes, there was euphoria that he made some change. But in the cold reality of today, chaos is still up. Confusion is up, and it's still a 10% tariff. And no matter what the stock market's saying, your intrepid cameraman here, the Jocko standard of looking at his 401k, and it's still down, that's what Americans are doing right now. And they know where grocery prices are up. They know that this Trump tariff tax is still a huge problem for them in their everyday lives.
Yeah, you know, Willie, we're coming to a very interesting time, and it really started happening last week with tariffs and also with immigration, where you had some very conservative voices on the far right coming out, being very critical of the Trump administration's immigration policies. You had Joe Rogan, not far right, Joe Rogan sort of bouncing back and forth ideologically, but also a very powerful voice, questioning what was happening on immigration. You have conservatives also now doing the same thing when it comes to tariffs, saying, take your power back. You know, we showed David French and Charles Cook agreeing with each other on that. I'm not so sure they've always seen eye to eye on the right wing of the Republican Party or conservatism. But that's sort of a growing chorus that you're hearing, where people are saying to Congress, take your power back. Take your power back on spending. Take your power back on tariffs, on all of these other issues. But right now, it doesn't seem Speaker Johnson has any desire to exercise the constitutional powers that was given to him by the Constitution.
Yeah, basic checks and balances. Instead, we have a system where the President of the United States sits at his resolute desk, signs something, holds it up for the cameras, and says, here is my edict, go act upon it. So, Senator, I'm curious, as we talk about tariffs, sometimes this can feel like a macroeconomic conversation and debate, talking about the markets and Wall Street and everything else. But if you can take us inside your state of Minnesota and how these tariffs may already have impacted or might down the road shortly impact a business owner, let's say, or the consumers in Minnesota.
Big time. I was with small business owners just this weekend. Someone at a brewery. Why not visit a brewery when you have many small businesses? And you look at the cost of aluminum. Now, I have favored targeted tariffs. I understand that they can be very helpful in certain circumstances, and have favored some of them in the past under both Democratic and Republican presidents. But that's not what this is. This is across the board. And for small businesses that have limited money to invest, they have to now decide, even with this pause, which is still 10%, did they buy a bunch of inventory and store it because they don't know what he's going to do next because of all the uncertainty, or did they invest in expansion? For big businesses, they may be able to weather this for a while, but for small ones, they literally often will have their house on the line that they have mortgaged to be able to do this business. So small businesses, farmers who expect to be able to get their fertilizer, farmers who are completely connected to the rest of the world, this is devastating because they operate on really small margins and already have the headwinds of avian flu and all kinds of input costs. So this is very difficult for people. But the ones I'm most worried about are the consumers and the families that are looking at $1,000 a year of this Trump tariff tax.
Senator Klobuchar, the President of the United States created a global economic nightmare in the matter of a few hours. And now stability, reliability, and predictability as far as the American economy and the American government seems to be diminished in the eyes of a lot of foreign governments. What's the awareness level of the danger presented to us right now within the United States Senate? Are your colleagues as frightened and fearful of the future, the immediate future, as you seem to be?
They appear to be behind closed doors, but they seem to be more fearful of Donald Trump and then also his pal Elon Musk and the money he'd put against them in a primary if they stood up. And that's what really bothers me about this. At some point, you have to remember what you were elected to do. If you believe in capitalism, like I do, if you believe that the market has given us this incredible country, which if I was going to work on anything right now, it would be people's health care costs and their housing and their child care, which we should be doing. And yes, bringing down the debt and changing the way some of these taxes are working so that we can bring that debt down. These guys are going the opposite right now. They're not taking on our big challenges of workforce and debt. Instead, they're adding $37 trillion to the debt in 30 years when they should be reducing some of the burden on people who make less, but actually increasing some of the corporate taxes so we can bring more funds in to do something about the debt. And then, of course, they shouldn't be engaging in this trade war the way they are. Negotiate things in the USMCA. That's a trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. Do something when it comes to embarking on trade agreements with these other nations so we can take up China in a real way. But the way they're doing it now is just complete chaos. And I believe our Republican colleagues are starting to stand up in the Senate, and they need to do it in a big way, because this isn't going to end well if we give up all our power when the Constitution establishes 3 co-equal branches of government. And there is no provision in there that says Elon Musk can mess around with it.
All right, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, thank you very much for being on this morning, and still
It was great
ahead
to be
on
on.
Morning Joe. Great to see
Thanks.
you.